Hello everybody, we're back for another PyxelEdit tutorial. This is a wonderful pixel art and tile set and animation tool that you can find at PyxelEdit.com, created by Daniel Kvarfort, a wonderful piece of software that I've really enjoyed using. Today we're going to talk about animations and some of the tools that are available in this program for doing sprite animations, pixel art animations. So first of all, we'll create a new file here, and you'll notice again, if you followed along with our basics tutorial, you'll see there's a tile document or animation option or a single image document option. Obviously in this case we're doing an animation, we'll pick this first one. And here's where you can pick how big you want your canvas to be and your tile size. Now tile size is really the more important thing in this case. We're going to stick with 16 by 16. We're going to do just a simple little sprite to make doing our tutorial a little bit easier. But of course this can be as big as you want. You know, you could do a 64 by 64 or even bigger if you wanted to and get as much detail into your sprite as you want. But this is what we'll start with for now. So as you can see, we have our canvas here that is 10 tiles wide by 10 tiles tall, and I've prepared a little sprite here that we're going to use for this tutorial. So we've got our little robot here, and we're going to do two animations. We're going to do kind of an idling animation, you know, what would this robot do if he was just standing around waiting, and then we'll do a walking animation for this robot. So the very first thing you'll want to do is create some sort of character sprite. I've just done this little simple one for demonstration purposes, but you'll do your character as you want. And let's look at our animations toolbar. Now that's usually this toolbar here at the bottom, which you can drag and hide. So if you don't see it, it might be hidden down here at the bottom. So go ahead and drag that up, and you'll see we have a frame edit tool here, and we'll see we have a list of our animations on the left over here. So very first thing, let's zoom out our canvas a bit. Let's create an animation. So this is animation 1, and if we hit the settings button here, we can create this this animation, give it some properties. So we'll call this very first one, we'll just call it idle. And here you can edit the frame duration, so how many milliseconds every frame takes up in the animation. And you can also select the base tile, that's which tile the animation starts with, and length is how many tiles make up the animation. We'll leave those alone for the moment, although you'll see up here this orange bar here. Actually, if I click OK, if I zoom out a little bit, you'll see now a blue and an orange bracket, and that corresponds to the beginning and the ending of our animation. So if I click settings here again, you'll see we start with base tile 0, that's the very first one, and it's 4 tiles long. You can edit this manually right here in the settings window. On the other hand, you can click this button down here, set the animation range, and if we click that, we can actually drag to set our animation length. And actually it would appear that it's stuck on 4. Let me see here. Okay. Normally you can drag Let's check something here. Okay, you can left click to pick your starting tile and right click to pick your ending tile when you've selected this set animation range tool. Left click and right click. However, you should be able to just hold down left click and drag. There, it's working now. It looks like there might be a bit of a bug with the drag feature. I'm just holding left click and dragging to set the animation length. It does appear to be working now. I'm not sure what was going on a minute ago. It was I could have just been looking at it funny and not seeing what I was supposed to be seeing. Anyway, three ways to set your animation range. Number one is set it manually right here. Number two is to left click and drag to set your beginning and ending. Third way is to left click on the beginning, right click on the ending. So for this robot, let's do a 6 tile animation for the idle animation. And so we've created the animation, we've set its range. We'll leave the speed alone for the moment. Let's go back into our tile editing tools and let's select this guy, right click, left click, put him at the beginning of this range, and we'll just sort of move over so we can see the whole thing. Now you can also do this, the animations from left to right or top to bottom or both. So for example, if I just drag and click like this, you'll see my blue bracket is here, my orange bracket is here. This means the animation goes like this. Those tiles, these tiles, these tiles, these tiles, these tiles, so on. You can also just do it like that, and it'll go top to bottom. So it's kind of your preference as to how you want to set up your animations. I like left to right. It just makes more sense to me, especially if we're talking about a left to right motion like walking. But right now we're going to do our idle. So let's pick our base tile here, and I'm just going to make copies here by holding down Shift and right clicking. So now we have 6 different tiles. So now we can edit each one without worrying about editing the others. So the very first thing, let's give this guy a blink. Now you'll see down here we have a preview window. You can pause the animation, play the animation, and also set to loop here. So if we undo the loop and press play, it goes through a single loop and stops. We can just keep the loop going, press play, it'll keep going. Alright, so as he's standing there, he blinks. That's pretty nice, I guess, but I'm also going to give him a heartbeat. I think that'd be kind of neat. So what I'm going to do is select this little blue light on his chest and come up here to our color picker, and I'm going to desaturate that a bit and darken it a bit. And let's see, we'll maybe edit these 4 middle frames. So now if you look down the playback, he's got kind of this blinking blue light on his chest, which is kind of like a heartbeat in a way, right? So that looks pretty good to me. That's a decent idle animation. You know, I tried to not sync up the blinking and the light, neither in length of tiles or position, just to make it look a little bit more interesting. Of course, the whole thing does loop every 6 tiles anyway, so you could make this a lot longer and add more natural variation into that animation if you wanted to. Depending on where you're using this sprite and where you're going to use this animation, you know, if you're going to put this into GameMaker or some other similar tool, you know, for your platformer game or something, you could also create several different idle animations, for example, and you know, use your game logic to swap between them. So we could have one where he blinks, maybe one where he doesn't blink, maybe one where he sort of turns his head and looks at something and turns back, and then your game logic could, you know, kind of randomly pick which idle animation to do and string them all together to give the illusion that it's a much more complicated animation than it really is. So this is a very simple example, but let's do something a little more complicated. So let's grab our base tile here again, and we'll make a copy of it, I guess. And then we'll, again, make copies for all 6 of those. Actually, our walking animation, just to keep it simple, is only going to be a 4-frame animation. So let's kind of zoom in on this, and let's see what we want to do with this. So first things first, we're gonna go to our second tile, and we're gonna move the back leg forward, right? And we're actually gonna move the front leg, the front leg back. So as the front leg moves I'm calling the left leg the front leg, the right leg the back leg. So if you imagine this character is kind of standing at us 3/4 toward us, And actually, I think what's going to look a little bit better is if we kind of color code these legs. You know, just like we did with the arm. Actually, I'm going to do that up here with our idle animation as well. With the arm, you know, one arm is a different color than the other. It just gives it a little bit more perspective. I'm sure that you graphic artists out there are going to just be horrified at what I'm doing to this these colors here, how I've done the perspective. But you know what? we're just trying to learn here. So we're moving the front leg, the left leg here, forward, which means that left arm. Okay, let me let me start over. So from the robot's perspective, this dark arm is his right arm. This dark leg is his right leg, even though it's on the left side of the image, right? Okay, I hope everybody can see that. I'm not being too confusing. So as the right leg goes forward, the right arm goes back, right? You think about how you walk, your arms move opposite to your legs. So right leg goes forward, right arm goes back. So we'll do like that. And the opposite is true. So his left leg, the light leg, is going back, which means his left arm will go out. Okay, so there's that. Now we're going to come back to the middle. And at the middle point here, kind of the arms and legs are all sort of in line with each other. So again, we're gonna let's see here, we're gonna get rid of that, and actually we're gonna show these legs crossing over a bit. Now again, I'm not an animation expert in terms of the art of it here, so please forgive me if this just ends up looking totally bizarre. So what you see now here is the dark leg, the robot's right leg, has gone from the back to a little bit forward to all the way forward. So what our arm should do is from the side of the robot back, and actually it should go back even further, shouldn't it? I'm not really sure how to make that look. I guess that'll do. And same thing with the right arm then. The robot's left arm. Okay, now that that's completely confused, and I think we actually are going to make a longer animation out of this, the way this is going. Okay, so our robot's right arm goes middle, back, all the way back. Then it's going to come back the other way, right? So we're going to kind of reverse this. So we're going to take this one, and then we're going to take this one. Okay, so now let's actually add the animation and see what this looks like so far, to just do a reality check and make sure that we're not making this look totally ridiculous, which is quite possible. Okay, yeah, it does look a little ridiculous, but we've only done half the animation, so we'll see. Okay, so let's grab this guy and make a few more copies here. So now we're going to swing that right arm, that dark arm, forward a little bit. So let's just do like we did before. And consequently, the left arm, this light colored arm, is going backwards. So let's do that again, and this time a little bit further, right? I think we did like that. Actually, I'm going to do like that. Okay. And the left arm we can't see because it's behind. Yes, the left arm. And then we're actually going to just copy this one and put it there again. And then we're back to our first bit. And actually, I think we lost that guy. Okay, so let's see how this looks now. We'll drag our animation out, and let's just watch him walk. Okay, that looks a little goofy, but we do have the same frame on the beginning and the end, so watch out for that. So actually, we're going to just go up to there, skip this last frame. Okay, that looks fairly smooth with his arms, but the legs are a bit screwed up. So let's come in here and look at our legs. Actually, let's, just for cleanup, let's get rid of that. All right. Okay, so what are our legs doing? So our legs start in the neutral position, and then our right leg is going to go forward. Maybe actually let's give him a hip here, because it's going to look a little weird if we don't, isn't it? In fact, what if we get rid of their legs entirely? And start over here. Okay, so this leg is going to come forward a bit, right? And then it's going to come forward even more, because that's how we're drawing our robot here. And then it's going to come back, and then it's going to be back, and then so straight, little out, a lot out, little out. Okay, yep, we're missing one here. So let's move this, move this, move this. And what are we missing here? We're missing our neutral position. Okay, so that leg looks good. So it swings forward and then back to neutral, and now it's going to swing back. So we're going to go like this and then like that. And let's put that little foot on there. So now if we look at our animation, okay, that foot looks okay, you know, for some uninspired pixel art on my part. So let's just do the same thing with our other leg. And then here, the legs are moving apart. And here the legs are all the way apart. And let's put that foot back on there. Alright, so now we look at our animation, and okay, the arms move appropriately. I think the legs mostly move appropriately. You know, there's no hip swing here, so actually what might look better is if in this middle position here we got rid of those little hips, so it looks a little more like, it's hard when you're working with so few pixels. Actually, we're also missing that bit right there. That smooths it out a little bit more. That hip swing, I don't know. I'm not going to spend a lot of time worrying about that. I'm just going to put it back the way it was. I believe that's how it was. Okay, just so we can focus on the tools here. So something that I didn't show you, which will help a lot with this sort of stuff. Man, that looks really weird to me. Anyway, let's see here. So first of all, let's look at some of these other tools that we haven't looked at yet. So this pane, this frame edit pane, these left and right arrows, you can switch between frames. It just gives you this nice blown up view here. I believe you can actually draw right in this frame if you want. So we could drag this whole panel up and do our editing in this window if you prefer. I like kind of seeing everything on the big canvas, but that's just my preference. So you can step through here. You can also change here frame delay. This is a per frame speed. So this will just change the speed that we set here, our frame duration, per frame. So if I change this first frame to 200, and I go to the next frame, notice this is still at 100. So now see we have kind of this herky-jerky delay motion there. So let's go back and turn this to 100%. Not smooth it out again. So you can do a per frame delay here if you want. Now we're also going to show off this onion skin feature. So you can do an onion skin for the previous frame or for the next frame. I'm going to set it to the previous frame for the moment. And what you can see is we've got some of these pink pixels have showed up here. So let's step forward the frames. So what this is showing you is the outline of the previous frame in the animation. So this shows us, okay, the guy's arms are to the sides in the previous frame. So we can use this tool to say, okay, well, we want this arm to move out. This is where it was before. Let's move it out by a pixel. Again, okay, the guy's arm was here and here before. We're just going to move it out a little bit further. So this onion skin technique gives you kind of a reference to work off of per frame. Now the way I first did it, as I was showing you, I was just looking at each frame together up here in our canvas. But if you have bigger tiles, you know, say a 64 by 64 pixel tile, and you're doing much more detailed pixel art, just looking frame by frame is a lot harder because you have a lot more detail, a lot more things to keep track of. You know, here I have very few details. It's very easy to see what is different frame to frame. Not so if you have very complicated tiles, very complicated art. So that's how this feature works. So it becomes much more useful with more complicated stuff. Although if you look in this frame here, I'm looking at the very last frame, you'll notice we did something wrong. See, this pink shows where our leg was, and our new dark leg is actually moved over a pixel. So this actually should be changed. This should be like so. Let's get that foot on there. That should be like that now. If we look at our, that does look a little bit more. Yeah, that looks a little smoother. I think that was messing it up. You know, there's no hip swing in here at all, which is kind of bothering me. I'm not really sure what to do about that. I mean, I could. You know, I could do something like that. I don't know that it really helps though, because you know, the hips are now moving a little bit better, but the chest is not rotating. You know, I could, so when the right arm, the dark arm, is backwards, the chest should also be rotated to the right. So, you know, I could do something like move the light over one, and then bring it back, and then do the opposite when the arms are far out, move it over there. And you'll see it kind of gives the illusion that the chest is moving, but because we only have kind of a 1 pixel, our body is only 4 pixels wide, so we can't even out that motion very well of that light. So I think this just makes it look even more unnatural. So I think in this case, we would be better off leaving that where it is. Now a more talented pixel artist could probably find ways to kind of play with that and simulate a little bit more motion, make it a little bit more natural. One last thing we haven't done is kind of head bob. You know, this guy's kind of like doing a moonwalk. His head's not moving at all. His, you know, his gait is very sort of glidey looking. So we can make it look just a little bit more natural. And when his legs are the furthest apart, I'm, 'cause, 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 ' and thus his arms are fully swung. So this third frame here and this second to last frame, that's where we want to sort of add a little head bob. So actually what I'm going to do is just take that frame, select that whole upper part of the body, and hold down Control and just drag that down a little bit. And we're going to do that same thing over here for this frame. Just grab that body like so. And you'll see now our robot kind of does a little bit of a bob, which just makes his motion look a little bit more natural. You know, we have more frames to work with. We could do could make him bob a little more smoothly. So we could do like, let's see here. I'm not sure. Well, you know, we're going to call this good for now. Okay, so we have our idle animation. You'll see here that little heartbeat and the blinks. And we've got a walking animation, and actually we didn't add the heartbeat in there. So let's do that quick. So he's walking, so we're going to have his heartbeat a little quicker. So let's do maybe like 2 on, 2 off. Oops. We're working with an even number of frames in this case. And some of these frames are copies of each other, so this does confound things a little bit. Yeah, so actually we're just going to have to make sure all of these are not copies of anything, so I'm just right-clicking and then shift right-clicking to paste a copy of itself down. Now we can freely edit them and not worry. So we'll actually go off, off, on, off, on. Now if we watch that, you'll see that little heart beats a little bit more. Okay, so one last thing to show here. Let's go ahead and save this, and we'll call this robot animation. And then we're going to export this. So there's a couple different things you can do here. We can go export animations. So now we can export as a sprite sheet. Now this is really useful for importing into things like GameMaker. Sprite sheet will just create, you know, in this case, a long horizontal image with these different sprites all lined up. So I'll just show you what that looks like. Let's do the idle animation first, and that's 6 frames, it looks like. So we'll go sprite sheet column 6. We'll just go the file format. Auto pixel scale will stay the same. We can bump the scale up here if we want to. And let's save this. Yep, save that right there. Okay, that is saved. Let's go over to our folder here. Here's our robot animation.png. And you'll see here, that's what we get. It's just a simple image with those 6 sort of sub-images in it. And that's what is really easy to then import into something like GameMaker. Another thing we could do, if we go export, export animation, we can go, you can export individual frames if you want, as individual images. We're not going to do that. That could be useful, I suppose, depending on what other tools you're working with. So each frame would be its own image. Or we could go to animated GIF. So let's do our walking animation this time as a GIF. Now this thing's only 16 pixels high, so let's actually scale this time. Let's scale it by, I don't know, let's say 8. Let's just see what that looks like. And we'll go save. Okay, close that. Let's go back to our folder, and we have our robot animation.gif. And it's opening in Internet Explorer for some reason. But there you go. There's our little walking animation scaled up. So I think that concludes our animation tutorial for PyxelEdit. It's very easy to get into. There's not an overwhelming number of complicated and confusing tools. It's very straightforward. and very easy to use, especially as it's designed for the pixel art type of thing. It doesn't need to be excessively complicated to be really helpful, and this onion skinning thing will help for more detailed sort of pixel art at higher resolutions. And just to reiterate, there is a previous frame onion skin and a next frame onion skin, so you can do both ways there. So anyway, I hope everybody got something out of this tutorial. I think I've covered all of the animations features in here. I hope you can forgive my bad pixel art here, but anyway, hope everybody enjoyed. Please go check out PyxelEdit at pixeledit.com. That's PYXELEDIT.com, and give it a try. And as always, let me know if you have any questions or comments. I'm happy to dive back in here and do some more explanation of any features that were confusing or not covered very well. So everybody have a great day. I'll see you next time.